Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando.
Hello everyone, welcome to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast here tonight with Josh, and we're talking spoilers. So how's it going tonight, Josh?
I'm good. How are you?
I have to be honest, I'm a little overwhelmed. We were kind of talking about that before.
I understand.
So believe it or not, it has been 8 days. As of when we're shooting this, it's been 8 days since we did our spoiler, by the way. It feels
like it's
I was going to say it feels like it's been several weeks. So it's been 8 days since we did our spoiler, and it's been, I think, it's been like 11 or 12 days, I think, with the time change since spoiler season started. And the world is it's a different world right now. So
yes.
So that's what Josh and I are going to be doing tonight. We're going to be going through our first impressions of the set. We're going to give time to each hero and then kind of get out of here with our general thoughts. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us again. I hope you enjoyed the brand new intro. I redid the segue intro for Monarch with all the new heroes. I thought that was about time to update that. So Josh, you went and played some boring old stuff games on Tuesday. How did that go?
It was going great until I ran into Ira, and then I ran into her again. And one thing that I think the Illusionist will take care of is the Ira meta might be over.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. So, what are your impressions of the set? Well, actually, let's do it this way. Let's go in time. When we saw Brute, which was when we chatted last. I think we kind of didn't know quite what to make of her, but there was some cool options there. We then saw...
Yeah, I think...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think at first, when we saw some of the first things that were spoiled, I was surprised, because some of the first couple of cards that they spoiled seemed really strong. But then when I saw Shadow Brute, I got excited again, partly because I have a strong bias towards Brute to begin with, but then I saw some of the mechanics, and they weren't quite as scary as I thought that they might be. And it opened up some new lines of play that brought a lot of excitement for me, because I know that I'll probably be playing Shadow Brute pretty regularly.
Sure. And then we saw good old Chichane, right? Chain, we think, whatever. The Runeblade.
Yeah.
And I think the confusion for him, I think, is... I shouldn't say confusion, but the line of play, trying to figure it out, I don't think is as high as Shadow Brute. This guy seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, he seems very good, and he also has mechanics that I think are more complicated than we've seen with the way other heroes play. So I think it almost feels like the training wheels have come off with Fab, and this was the first kind of look at how you really have to manage the entire line of play with this guy, for your card pool, for your blood debt, and then the mechanic where you're discarding or banishing cards at the beginning of your turn. And those tokens are persistent and cumulative.
Yes.
And so that's just a big swing in the learning curve of the game for new players and for veteran players who are seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, so on the emotional roller coaster, I think, let me make sure I get this on screen here. The emotional roller coaster, I think when all the instants and stuff came out, I think both Josh and I were like, what the hell's going on? And then Brute came out, and I think we're like, okay, there's some cool mechanics here. And then I think Chain was still increasing. And then I'm just speaking for myself. I do have to apologize to everybody out there. I wanted to do a bunch of videos. I sat down Sunday ready to do some videos about the time that Sir Bolton, our light warrior, hit, and I just kind of like got stuck in my seat being like, this guy's phenomenal. So on the emotion roller coaster, I kind of went like that. Like, I think he might be too good, but usually, you know, when you think things are too good early, maybe they're not. But I mean, what are your thoughts there? I mean, how were you feeling about him?
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I felt, I don't want to say less excitement about when I saw Chain, just because I think I was more intimidated by trying to figure out how he works. So it wasn't necessarily a negative feeling. It was just kind of, I wonder at some point I'll be able to get my head around him. But then same thing, when Sir Bolton dropped, I kind of felt some of my optimism, or at least some of my initial feelings of this set is going to be super strong, and I'm not sure if we'll recognize, you know, the game as it was before this.
Yeah, I mean, I actually plan on doing a whole video about this later, but the Ranger used to have the better cost. Ranger used to have a high cost curve, or I should say a low cost curve, right? 0-4s and 1-5s because of how hard it was to play her stuff. And Light Warrior apparently has 0-4s and 1-5s and can sack an additional card if they choose, and then chuck it to give it go again.
Right. Yeah, and we're seeing cards that have 1-6-0-7.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, those ones you can
curve.
justify because, you know, like the new E-Strike, whatever it is, Celestial Strike or whatever it is, right? That one you can at least justify being like, all right, it's going to cost me things to get cards into my soul. Right? So yeah. I'm okay with stuff like that because we don't know enough to say that it's busted, right? I can live with that. But, I mean, Sir Bolton has straight up a 1-for-5 that he just plays from his hand.
Yep.
And the addition as an additional cost, you may do something, which that was driving me crazy as well, right? And I understand fundamentally why in Fab it's a cost so that somebody can't interrupt it. I get it. It was just like, wait, this isn't actually a cost, and I don't know. So yeah, I was having a hard time, and I was conflicted because like I was counting on Warrior. I wanted to play Warrior. I was excited about it, right? So like, oh, this guy's really cool. He looks really good. But I was like, wow, this is some pretty obvious power creep, or at least appeared to be. So that was mine.
Right.
And then Illusionist came out less than 24 hours ago of when we're shooting this. And I kind of don't know what to make of Illusionists. So just walk me through this one. Like, lead me to water here.
It's a little confusing. I think all the complexity that I thought I would be intimidated by with Chain is even more so with Illusionist, because she seems super strong, and she has these abilities that we're going to see auras that stay in play, and then auras that can be attacked. But if you do attack the aura, you can't get go again, so your turn's over unless you have a time snap potion or brute pants. So you're having to decide on your turn if you're going to invest in interrupting the auras that are in play or actually play out your hand. And then now there's the new mechanic of Phantasm, where these super strong cards that attack for 7 to 9, I think is what I've seen so far. But they can be broken with a 6 attack. But then they came out with the Beam card that can nerf your blocking card. And it just seems like there's a lot of moving parts with this character that... so my initial impression is that she seems super strong, but then I don't know how you manage her card pool with being able to pay for her expensive auras and her expensive attack with her spectral shields. So maybe that's going to be a mitigating factor that kind of tempers her down a little bit, but definitely on paper right now, without knowing anything else, she just seems super strong.
Yeah, I would have to agree, but I think I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the how. All right, so what we're going to do, or what I want to do, is I've set a timer for 5 minutes, and we're going to spend 5 minutes, because we don't want to be here for hours, right? We'll spend 5 minutes talking about what we're looking forward to on each class. So let's just go ahead and go in order. So Shadow Brute, or Brute. Actually, let's just do that. Let's just say Brute in general with the Shadow flavor. What are you looking forward to there? Go.
My favorite card, I think, so far for Brute is the Tear Limb for Limb. Draw and discard a random card. If a card with 6 or more is discarded in this way, the next Brute attack action you play gains +X, where X is its base attack. So it's you're running a lot of 6s, so you're hoping to draw and discard to where you're hitting for 12 on one attack. And what I like about it is a lot of the new Brute cards have a mechanic where it's not just discard a card as a cost of play, it's draw and then discard. And I think that helps the card economy and resource management for Brute in a way that it was sometimes cumbersome to try to play around how those works in traditional Brute. And that some of these cards are generic Brute. It makes it to where it's viable for Rhinar, which is awesome. But then a lot of the Shadow Brute stuff I think is awesome just because of the having to manage the risk of blood debt cards and getting those triggers off to where you could save yourself from that blood debt damage. I think will add a cool mechanic that you're already having to manage your card in hand, and cards that are getting discarded for different triggers depending on whether you're Rhinar or Levia, and then adding the aspect of the risk reward versus taking on blood debt to get some big combos up. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I think there's a lot of cool lines of play. I like the new Shadow Brute weapon. I also like the new axe, because I think it's a little bit more interesting. It's got similar mechanics to the Romping Club, but I think it brings something new. So I'm hoping to see some shadow cards or even generic cards that work with axe. Right now I think we only see things that work for Sir Bolton, but that's what I'm looking forward to mainly, is learning the new mechanics and getting to play with some of these new cards that open up lines of play for both generic Brute and Shadow Brute.
Yeah, and you actually brought up a good point as you were talking about it in terms of generics also. We've seen some tricks that, specifically to the draw a card and discard a card, we've seen some tricks that can actually help set that up, right? There was, scrolling through now, Memorial Ground, right? That's the put target attack action card with 2 or less from your graveyard on top of your deck, right? You have that one that can specifically or potentially help you. You also have the other one that lets you put a card from your hand on top of your deck. And both of those are, because that's effective. I guess that doesn't help your card economy. But yeah, there's a lot of options out there. And those are generic, so they help everybody, right? So, all right, you got a minute to spare there, so I'm going to pause and reset. All right, Chichane, Chain. This guy is off the chain, I think. So, what are your takes?
This one, I still, if I'm honest, I still don't know all of the cards that make it work the way that we've suspect that it will, and all the combinations. I would be happy if I, at some point, learn how this guy works in a way that I can understand the class a little bit better. I do like that it's not Rune Chant dependent. I don't think any of the cards even reference Rune Chant. They all deal 1 or 2 arcane damage, which I think makes it kind of more aggressive. You're not just pulling up the arcane damage to try to do one big combo wombo. So I think the constant pressure, is something I like playstyle wise over how Viserai can sometimes play. I really like the Scythe for the Majestic weapon, 2-handed. It deals arcane damage whenever and then if it does damage, they can't heal, which I think is better than the Reaping Blade that we've seen for Viserai.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think some people haven't liked the Scythe, but I think that's pretty good for me. But
Yeah, I think the one thing that is a little hesitant is it does cost 3 for a 3 attack, but when you consider it's 3, and it does arcane damage to start the chain, and if they take damage either from the arcane or from the side itself, they can't gain, which it turns off your sigils. You're stuck with a red card in your hand that now do you pitch it, or do you try to arsenal it? And wait until another opportunity to play it. I kind of like that mechanic of it. It forces some more interactions between how you play cards and how you block things, knowing that some of the things that you're doing aren't going to help you.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, do remind. I mean, I get it. It's 3, but it's 2 attacks though, right? Functionally. So,
Yeah.
And I think most of the time they're going to take the arcane, like most likely.
Right, and that's what I kind of like about it is, are you going to waste a card for 1 point of damage? And if you are going to take the damage, then you can't heal next turn.
Yeah. So we've been talking about his thing, and we haven't really explained it, right? So Soul Shackle is his aura, and he can just poop these out left and right. But as you mentioned earlier, they're cumulative. So at the beginning of your action phase, banish the top card of your deck. Okay, I get a bonus for that. Sounds super sweet, but that's a major penalty. And it is. But again, we're starting to see more and more cards that enable themselves to be played from the banish zone. You can just play them from the banish zone. So he's actually, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's going to deck himself real fast. But he's feeding himself, right?
Yeah, his ability to give himself go again is, I think, really strong. I'm kind of curious how it will play out in classic constructed versus Blitz. And Blitz, I would think that using his ability too much would be a little bit scarier, but maybe in classic constructed you get more minimum than you would, and you got more cards to add to your deck to where maybe you can pull it off a little bit safer. So I'm interested to see how effective he is in both formats, and if it changes how people play him.
Yeah, I would imagine him in limited format is just going to be swing every turn, I would imagine. But with the occasional, maybe you poop one out every now and then to get a double attack in or something like that. Or I should say a triple attack in. But I think my closing on this one, we're getting close to our time, is we've also seen cards that for Runeblade that attack and deal arcane at the same time, and that's a big that's big, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes him seem so strong is the ability to do both in one attack, similar to how Viscerai did it, but without having to wait for the setup or have an off turn where they're just playing read the runes, and just coming straight at you with something that's going to affect your hand both in resource pitch value and in cards to block with.
Yep, and then we have 12 seconds, so I'm just going to throw up, because it's an amazing card. Bounding Demagon is crazy, crazy good card for Shadow Runeblade. So, all right, we're going to go off here. All right, there we go. All right, restart. All right, Sir Bolton. Yeah, he's good. So... yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think the big discussion should be his sword, right? So his Majestic sword. So for 0, you attack for 0, kind of.
Right.
Kind of. So yeah, yeah. I guess I don't know. Help me out here. I'm struggling for a place to start, because this guy just seems really, really good. If you've charged, you get a bonus, and then when you charge, you can use that charge to go wide, or go wider, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, and it doesn't seem like it's that hard to charge so far, but I mean, maybe in practice it will be.
It seems like there's a lot of cards that give charge. One thing that is I've learned in our discussions of trying to figure out how he works and how good he is having a card go into your soul is not the same thing as charging. There's some cards that if it hits, it goes into the soul, and there's one I think that pulls a card off the top of the deck and goes into the soul. It's only when a card from hand goes into soul that it's charging, and the cards usually say that. So there's less opportunities, and I think some of us thought that the mechanic was synonymous, even though it didn't have the keyword, but that's not the case. But I do think it's an interesting decision point about whether you go with the sword or you go with the axes, because the sword is very cool, and it leads into exactly what you want to be doing with it, because you want to charge, and then if it charges, then the sword gets +3, so that qualifies for its charge and for the attack reaction, because it has a bonus higher than it started with, which leads into your still looking at worst 2 to 3 attacks a turn with only a 3 or 4 card investment, and that's a lot. But the axes play off of each other very well, because you swing with the first one, then the second one gets a bonus, and those bonuses are persistent. So with his specialization where he can attack with those weapons again, then you attack with body, and mind gets a bonus from body, and then you attack with body again, it gets a bonus from the mind attack, and then the second mind attack gets a bonus from essentially both body attacks. So his axes just get better the more he gets to swing them, and that's the part where I don't know how you manage cards in hand and resources to pay for all the attacks and the buffs and to get the initial go again and the charge. But obviously the tools are there for him, and that's what makes him super scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. One of the counterpoints, though, is that do you remember that a majority of, from my perspective, I was talking about his 0/4s and his 1/5s in terms of his attacks, right? We have Valiant Thrust is a 1 for 4, which if you've charged gains +3, which is crazy good. We have...
And that's for, I haven't even talked about the attack action cards, which we don't normally see in
Right,
Warrior.
But I do want to add on, so his attack action cards are crazy good, but the majority of the attack... Wait, I think I said attack react. Sorry. His attack action cards are good, but they're his attack reacts, or Warrior's attack reacts. Most of them are reprise for weapon, right? Most of them say reprise target weapon attack gains. So it's going to be very interesting. Right. It's a very different thing than we're used to with Warrior. They can't just throw out something. Now he can with his sword, of course, but he can't just throw out a piddly attack action card and come over the top. He still has to be doing weapon stuff. But he has quite the, forgive the term, quite the arsenal, right? Valiant Thrust, Bolt of Courage is great. Express Lightning, the 0 for 4, that as an additional cost you can charge. That seems pretty good. Yeah.
And I even like how we had talked about it in the Discord a little bit about how cards that maybe didn't see a lot of play outside of limited, like Push the Point, for him is a 6 attack for 1 that he can give go again is just super strong.
Yeah, I think he's going to be... I'm very curious to see how the axe builds pull out versus the sword builds. I personally think the sword build's probably the way to go early, but I know there's a lot of cool ideas around the axes too. So
yeah, and that's where I think...
No, we're good. Finish your thought.
Oh, I just figured he would be the one that we'd hit the timer on. But I was just thinking, with axe build, I think you could commit to the axe build probably and play it like a more traditional warrior with all your reacts and buffs. But with the sword, I think that's when you start to see the attack actions come into play. And it'll be interesting because it'll be kind of 2 different versions of the same kind of build.
Yeah. All right, Illusionist. So just to put everything in perspective, because some people may not have seen her, I'm pretty sure everybody has. But so Prism is our light illusionist hero, and once per turn instant for 2, she can banish a card from her soul to create a spectral shield token. And that spectral shield token, it's not in. What's the spectral shield? Can you read it off for me, please?
Yeah, if your hero would be dealt damage, instead destroy Spectral Shield and prevent 1 damage that source would deal.
Yeah, and it's not a May. That's the important part of it, right? So kind of talk us through what we think, at least in this 24-hour period, what we think, how she works, how we think she works.
Well, there was the first couple cards they spoiled spoke a lot to the Spectral Shield and how you can build them, and there's cards that will give you 3 Spectral Shields. And it was kind of understood that if you don't block an attack completely, it's not a May. At least one of your shields is going to pop, whatever the difference is going to be. So the goal is to keep your shields in play. And then we saw how with the Iris of Reality, you can attack with your shields, and they have a 4 attack. It does cost 3 resources, but they have Go Again. Have a couple of these shields in play, you can dump a bunch of blues and hit 3 or 4 times for 4 attack. Well, assuming you'll have to block before that, but even still, if you're getting 2 attacks off at 4 a pop, that's not a bad turn for a wizardry character, so to speak. And then, as we saw more cards come, that's when we started seeing Phantasm. And the Phantasm mechanic is basically one big, huge attack that can only be, or if it's blocked by an attack with 6 or greater, it pops the Phantasm, the chain link ends, and it's over. So it's super strong. It's great, obviously, against traditional warriors and ninjas who don't have a lot of 6 attacks in their card choices, typically. Maybe not so good against Brute or Bravo, but then she gets kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card with that beam, which can debuff the blocking card's attack value before it triggers Phantasm, or checks for Phantasm. So you could be throwing a 6 at a Phantasm thinking, oh, this is a 9 attack, I'm blocking with attack blocking card, and it will stop that attack, only to find out you were debuffed, so your card doesn't qualify for Phantasm, so you went from blocking 9 effectively to only blocking 3, and that 6 damage, especially in Blitz, is pretty huge to go from blocking all of it to blocking a third of it.
Yep.
And that's where she seems pretty strong, is getting her Phantasms off. And I think another part of it, I don't remember which card. There's a card that lets you look at an opponent's hand and bottom deck a card from it. So she's going to be able to go in, take your 6 attack card out of your hand, put it on the bottom. You do get to draw again, but if you're not a Bravo or a Brute who tends to play a lot of 6-cost cards, she can ruin your day and keep it to where her Phantasms can't be just poofed from existence. So I just think she's got a lot of strong mechanics that make things that were already strong stronger, and then the beam gets her out of trouble if all else fails, and that just seems like she's shoring up a lot of the weaknesses. So with her, at least from what I've seen so far, I don't know if you worry about building prismatic shields. They seem cool, and I like the mechanic, but it seems like the strength with this character is control with auras that end your turn if you attack with them, and then just try to get your Phantasms off for these big, huge hits.
Yeah, swing and I mean, yeah, and at least in Blitz. Yeah, I think she's going to be a beast in Blitz, but because there are certain characters certain heroes, that can't field 6s. I mean, you can. There's some generics out there, but I don't know.
And that's kind of the good news, so to speak, is that there are a lot of generic 6s in this set, and there's a lot of 6s that most classes just would naturally avoid because they didn't fit the playstyle. So for better or for worse, I think she's shaking up how we've built decks for characters traditionally, because you're going to have tools to address her. And I know in Blitz, or I'm sorry, in Classic Constructed, you could have a sideboard which lets you kind of mix and match what you want to use and win. But in Blitz, I think the Blitz environment is going to change quite a bit because you do have less cards. There is no sideboard, so you have to build a deck that will address, Prism if you come across her. You need to have blues to block arcane damage if you come against Rinchant or Wizard. You just have to make a more versatile deck. So I think we'll see a lot less redlining of decks. You're going to have yellows and blues more than I think you had before, and you're going to have to include cards you normally wouldn't consider vital for your class just to have more options.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so I think my last comment, specifically to, I mean, kind of what you were just talking about, deals with the way that arcane damage. Now, granted, we're only seeing that from one guy, I guess. Well, that not technically. The illusionist generates some, but we're seeing a lot of these arcane damage now come in packets of 2, right? Which is also a big deal from a gear standpoint, from an equipment standpoint, right? In terms of your arcane barrier. So I think that's a big change, or potential change as well. We'll see how that impacts everything.
Speaking of gear, I'm curious of your thoughts of, we've seen 2 legendary equipments so far, one shadow, one light. How do you think they compare?
I'm going to reserve judgment on that until we see the rest, but it seems the light one's pretty good. I don't know. I mean,
I was just curious because the light one seems good, and it's got a repeatable ability that's doable. And I don't dislike the carrion husk, but if you use it, you do block 1 attack for 6, but then you have blood debt for the rest of the game. And if you don't lose it by the time you have 13 hit points, then you have blood debt for the rest of the game. So it's just kind of weird to have a legendary equipment that's got some drawbacks to it. But I mean, it does kind of feed into how those characters are supposed to prioritize risk versus reward. But I just thought it was interesting, especially when you compare it to those new boots.
The Valiant Dynamo. Yeah. That's real good.
I mean, it does. The one big thing is that it does take away the go again from the refraction bolters. That's not nothing for sure, but I think it'll get some work in against, especially like Kodachis. Like, you can eat a Kodachi every turn, hypothetically. That's just one less point. It takes away their persistent pressure damage. This seems pretty interesting.
You spoke about sideboards, and you do even get a sideboard in Blitz, so.
That's true.
All right. Oh, yeah, I got to throw in one more warrior card. Spill Blood. Axes you control, gain +2, and dominate until end of turn. Oh, my goodness.
That card is pretty darn good. I need to find it. I like the art of that card. I like the theme of that card. I only wish it was generic, just so it could work with the Shadow Brute Axe. That's my only complaint, but that is a very cool card.
That card is bonkers.
And then I need to find my favorite card of the set. I can't seem to find it. But it's...
Well, if you're looking at the gallery sometimes lags by a little more than 24 hours, if that's the issue.
Well, I think it's in here. It's Out Muscle.
Out Muscle's in there. Yeah. All right, let me give you a second. I'll pull it up.
What I love about that card is, to me, I found it. Out Muscle isn't defended by a card of equal or greater strength that has Go Again. I just think this is what I would consider the best of card design.
I said the same thing.
It's thematic. It's cool.
Top notch.
It's got an ability that forces you to, block with the 6 attack. So it's kind of offensive and defensive at the same time. So just this card, I just love the design of it, and it's probably my favorite of the set so far, just because I think it's just really cool how the mechanics work and the choices it's going to make your opponents have to decide if they want to block with their 6s, or if they don't have 6s, you just get Go Again. So, and since it's a generic 6, I think we'll see a lot of people playing it because now you need to protect yourselves from phantasms. So.
Sure. Yeah, especially early. All right, well, that goes through it. So you just said your favorite card of the set. That was going to be one of the questions I asked. So how about now that you took my question away, how about your next favorite card of the set so far?
Next favorite, it's I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's a new brute one. Oh, here it is.
Pulping. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Pulping
and then
that hoping was my favorite until Alchemist.
Well, we just got the update to Maw, right? We got the update today to Endless Maw, where they clarified that it can't hit for 15, it can only hit for 9. So that's relevant. Yeah, it took some of your fun away.
I mean, I think a lot of us knew that it probably shouldn't work that way. So it's not like I had my heart set on it, but I think it was useful that they clarified it now.
Yeah, and I have to jump. I have to openly admit that on that one, I never thought it could hit for 15 because I never read the blurb to the right. I just read the card and then like moved on, right? So like I never saw that their blurb said it could hit for 15. I just assumed it was like, well, you banish 3, and if 1, then 3. So it reads
and
right.
I think that's a lot of us drew that conclusion. Like we never even considered it until someone noticed what it actually said in the fluff text about it hitting for 15, and then it raised a lot of questions because there's a lot of cards that read in a similar manner. Like I think Bellows of Hell is another one in this set where it could, if read the same way, buff 9. So if you buff 9 and then play Maw and it gets buffed by 9, you're hitting for 24 with Dominate. And we thought maybe it shouldn't work that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you say we cap this off? So any parting shots or anything? What are you expecting to see? So we should have 2 more days of Illusionist, right? And then 1.5 more days because time zones. 1.5 more days of Illusionist, and then we should have, I would assume, a week of generics. I would assume, and then pre-release.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some more generics. I think a lot of the generics I've seen in this set, I think, are very flavorful and add a lot to the game in and of themselves. And then it'll be time to start thinking about how to draft this set, either sealed or draft. What cards would you keep? What card would decide what class you're playing? If there's one card that you saw that means, okay, I absolutely have to play this particular character. So it'll be interesting to see how, once we know more of the cards that are in there, and I'm just excited to finally get to play it here in about a week.
Well, two axes seem good, but I don't know. We'll see how it all works out. So, all right. If nothing else, just want to thank everybody for joining us again. Apologies, kind of, that we haven't had more content, but like I said, it's been very overwhelming to try and figure out where everything stands. So I think it was easier for us to do this tonight now that we actually have the full picture, or at least the class full picture. So we will be back giving you more content than you want very shortly. So thanks for your patience. So just want to remind everybody, if you don't have your pre-orders in yet for Unlimited Edition, that Gongai Games is where Josh and I both get our sealed product from. And my buddy over at Fab Foundry, he's got singles coming your way, so make sure to use him. And if you do go buy from them, you can use the link below, and we get a small kickback from that. Helps keeps the cardboard crack addiction going. So Josh, I know it's very late there. Thank you for finding the time to join up and get this out. I know your fans. I know your fanboys appreciate it. So, big plans for the weekend, or?
This weekend is doing some honeydews to make up for the fact that I'm doing release events on Friday and Saturday of next week. So, taking care of the wife aggro, making sure everyone's happy so I can go do what I like to do next week.
Fair enough. All right, my friend. Well, thanks for joining. Everyone, thanks for watching us, and go Commando.
Go Commando.